Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan, and with the release of Omens of Destruction, I'm looking towards the next DLC. And there's one reason why. We've had Shadows of Change, which was for Tzeentch, Thrones of Decay, which was for Nurgle, Omens of Destruction for Khorne, and now we are looking towards Slaanesh, which was originally planned for after Thrones of Decay, but apparently was delayed for some reason. Who knows? But you guys know me well enough by now that I'm a big Slaanesh fan, and there's a few things that I'd love to see. So I'm feeling casually optimistic at this point, because I very much doubt that they're going to delay that again. They seem to be wanting to keep on the theme, as we've had, well, pretty much nothing but Chaos-style DLC since the release of Warhammer 3. I imagine that will change shortly after this one. And I figured it's better to start now whilst Creative Assembly are probably winding down from Omens of Destruction and likely taking notes of what they want to do, throw some ideas out, hope for the best, and we'll see. So yeah, let's talk about Slaanesh. But before anything, a big thank you to our sponsor, Instant Gaming, who have finally restocked with Omens of Destruction. Want to pick up the brand new DLC for Total War Warhammer 3 for cheaper than Steam? You can do that with a link in the description below. Instant Gaming is a platform where you can buy a bunch of different video games, even ones that have just recently released, for discounted prices right from the very beginning. Gaming is getting more expensive, and sometimes you have to find the best deals anywhere, and they've had some pretty damn good deals. Not only that, but we do have a monthly giveaway going on. Win the game of your choice. All you have to do is click the link in the description below, sign up, you don't even have to make a purchase, and you might get lucky and win whatever game you want. This is a company I've been working with for the past few months now, and I use their service quite often. There's a few games I've been trying to get into, like for example, Europa Universalis 4, because there's a Warhammer mod there. Keep an eye out on a video on the channel very soon. But a big thank you to our sponsors, Instant Gaming. Let's jump in. So it's very likely that Creative Assembly are going to be using the same format that we've been seeing for the past two DLCs. One Legendary Lord in the paid style and one FLC, but both for Slaanesh. Which is great, because right now we only have one Lord with Nakari, who is fine, but, you know, I'd like to have a start which isn't just straight into being DP'd. It also doesn't take any guesses to know that we're going to get one Legendary Lord that's a demon and the other one that's a mortal. It's a format that we've been seeing quite heavily lately. And I imagine that it's going to be kind of more like Thrones of Decay than Omens of Destruction, that we'll see the mortal Legendary Lord as the DLC and the demon as the FLC. It's been kind of back and forth lately, but it does make sense considering that I'm expecting the following. The next DLC will likely feature the following: Slaanesh, duh. High Elves, because it makes so much sense with the character that I'm envisioning, and I think Creative Assembly are likely going to do the same thing too. And I'm hoping for Dark Elves. There's people saying that it might be something else, and it could be, for all we know, but I'm thinking High Elves, Dark Elves, and Slaanesh, because it is the ultimate theming. Creative Assembly have been kind of skipping out on the narrative lately, but the narrative can easily be written with this. Slaanesh is hunting the High Elves. The Dark Elves are trying to destroy them both. All three of these factions are so intertwined in their own respective lore that you've got the theming there without even needing a heavy narrative. Think of it in the same way as Thrones of Decay. There was no real big narrative there, they all had their own underlying storylines, but the Empire and the Nurgle faction were so linked up that, yeah, it was there. You felt like you were playing through the Tamarkan book. There was no specific book for Slaanesh because unfortunately the Throne of Chaos series was cancelled early for lack of sales. More so Games Workshop's incompetence and lack of promotion of said book series, but you know. The theming can hit super hard with certain characters. But the theming can hit super hard with just a few characters. So, paid on the left, free on the right. On the left we have T'Challa the Denied, a former High Elf princess who absolutely despises the High Elves. Her family sold her off to a Keeper of Secrets, because, you know, that's what loving families do, and she has been jaded ever since. She's managed to free herself from the Keeper of Secrets by devoting herself to Slaanesh, with the threat of, if she ever fails, she would find herself enslaved by the Keeper of Secrets who wanted her originally. But that's not the main thing here. That could actually be something to do with the quest battle, actually, to get her swords or whatever. She despises elves, she hunts them down. Her reasoning is they betrayed her, and now she needs to get her revenge at the same time as doing all her usual stuff. She's immortal, despite the fact of how she looks. I mean, it's a very old miniature, let's be very honest there. The artwork actually does look a little bit better. But yeah, she's immortal. She hasn't actually changed into a demon just yet. She's kind of close at this point. The heavy mutations are showcasing that. Multiple arms make her an incredible melee fighter, and her faction would focus around mortals, just like Tamukan or Arbal the Undefeated. She's not going to have a mount, but she should be incredibly fast, and, well, I mean, who doesn't want a Blunder Lord, right? It just makes perfect sense to have her fighting some high elves, and we'll do a high elf video later down the line, as I've been writing some notes. But the Childless campaign could be literally focusing around enslaving high elves, seducing them, hunting others down, trying to fight waves through them, and maybe fighting the Dark Elves and the Wood Elves too. Literally just hunting down as many knife ears as possible with a few quest battles just to kind of add to that flavor. Alongside that would be the Mask. The Mask is a character that could never lead armies on the tabletop, but given how Creative Assembly have kind of forgone the rule and just, you know, Deathmaster Snickage leading a faction and stuff, it kind of makes sense to have her there. With her own dancing mechanic. What she was actually very well known for is dances, which would allow her to have different buffs and different effects, but it wouldn't be something huge in the style of, say, Malachi or Tamukan or whatever. Her dances could be in a very similar vein to Epidemius, something very, very basic. Could also imagine her having some sort of quest battles too, because, yeah, you know, she does appear in random places for different battles, but I like the character. I would rather go for a Herald. I think, well, actually, that's what they've been doing too. We've already had a Keeper of Secrets, so they'll likely just do a Herald like they've done for Thrones of Decay and Omens of Destruction. Well, technically, the Changeling is a Herald, but that's been just super weird there. I think that these two characters are like the perfect choices for Legendary Lords, one paid and one free, one focusing on mortals, the other one focusing on Demonettes specifically, so you'd have Demonettes on foot, the Seekers, Seeker Chariots, Heart Seekers too, just a reduction of those to focus you on that rather than going Fiends, Keeper of Secrets, and whatever other big monsters that we could potentially see. The only thing that could be quite problematic is where are we going to see these Legendary Lords. One thing to note is that there is a Slaanesh minor faction in the Northern Chaos Waste and another one down in the Southern Chaos Waste. So that could actually be the case there. We could see that happening. I would rather if Creative Assembly got permission, and I mean this really, really, really strongly, just open up Ind a little bit. They've opened up Cafe for something, and then no context about it. I have my theories, but I don't know, man. It would just be nice if we had a character start around there, but not in the waste all the time. It would just be nice to have different starts. We've already got something in the center, because Nakari starts in Orth 1, but it's just, I don't know, man. It would just be really, really cool if T'Challa Denied started in Ind. I'm not keeping my hopes up, though, because Arbal should have kind of been there too, yet for some reason he's on the Skull Road, which is a really odd place to put him. I'm just a little concerned because, one, it's going to be way too close to Azazel and Sigvald, and you've already got enough Slaanesh over there, and two, there's too much congestion in the Northern Chaos Waste at the moment, right? Like, let's be honest, right? You've got so many Chaos factions, and it's a map design flaw, because obviously the Chaos Wastes are too small. So I don't imagine the map getting expanded, but it would be nice just to see something a little bit different and actually push you towards a different type of campaign. Before we jump into a legendary hero, Slaanesh as a faction plays fine for me. It's very micro-intensive, but that's what Slaanesh always was in the tabletop. I imagine that they'll get some sort of update with regards to what's happened in Omens of Destruction. So mortal buildings and demon building trees separated, which is kind of nice. I think that actually does work out quite well. I've really enjoyed my Arbal and Skulltaker campaigns, so I think that it's not a bad system. Fixing up the tech tree would be something I would absolutely love. And I mean really, really love. It's not bad, but it would be nice just to get the tiering system just like Nurgle and Khorne have now, because it just feels better. You can add a few more techs in just to flesh it out a little bit more, and it could be seduction and then, I don't know, armaments again, because at the end of the day, you want to build up your armies. Maybe retool something for the seduction mechanic, make it a little bit better. It depends. I mean, for here, I would honestly really love a vassal rework, because that's something that really needs to be done. I've been playing around with Valkyria a little bit, because obviously she's got the Scaramore troops, and you can get a Warriors of Chaos campaign like that, but vassals are atrocious to use right now, and it would be really, really cool if Slaanesh, which generally focuses around having some vassals, could bring a overarching rework for everyone in that regard. Nikari, it would be nice if he got a few updates. Scarbrand was ignored, which is kind of disappointing, but I could imagine like a super seduction mechanic for Nikari, because it makes sense, you know, he claims to have bedded Morathi, but then again, who hasn't? But I'll leave you to imagine that as we move on to the legendary hero, because there's only one character that I want as a legendary hero, and I think everyone can agree with me here. Steelcar, one of the absolute coolest miniatures that Games Workshop have ever released. I own a number of them, actually, to use as various different characters with my Slaanesh army. He is really cool, and you know, he's going to be a cavalry-based legendary hero. It's going to be very similar to Nurgle's Kha'Zix the Befouled, but can be used with every Slaanesh faction, including Sigvald. Well, I'm hoping so. Please, please, Creative Assembly. And the reason why he's essential is because, well, cavalry is going to be something that you're going to be using a lot with Slaanesh, is skirmish stuff, and micro, your cav is usually the best for that. I could imagine him because they would have to justify bringing in the mounts, right? A lot of work would come into doing the boob snake, and that would be for the pleasure seekers and the pleasure knights that we'll talk about in a little bit later. Plus, yes, there are a few characters, some mentions in the lore, but come on, right? It would be a character that you'd have mounted straight from the beginning whenever you pick him up. I don't imagine that they'll do a foot model for him. They just want to go straight into it, especially since he's going to be quite specialized. And a skill line that focuses around pleasure knights, pleasure seekers, the Chaos Knights, Marauder, Horsemen, all that type of stuff, focusing very heavily on the mortals, but those are generally some of your best ones, considering that they can hit on the front line too without dying out. The Heartseekers are quite good at holding the line, but just imagine a glorious charge with what would essentially be the Slaanesh version of the Rot Knights, the Doom Knights, and the Skull Crushers. So a melee fighter, very, very good at catching enemies, probably will likely have Duelist also, which could really work out quite well. Most Slaanesh characters end up being Duelists too. It would push you towards having just more mortal armies there. It's one of the things that I'm liking a lot recently with the Legendary Hero status. A lot of them are very specialized and pushing up for very specific armies. It's just sad that I don't imagine loads of legendary heroes coming in for all the factions. I mean, Chaos overall has quite a lot, but you know what I mean. It would be good if, say, for example, with the Empire, we could get Jubal Folk in the future, so we can focus on the shooty boys, and then, I don't know, Kurt Helborg to focus around knightly orders. It's just the idea of legendary heroes are cool, not at the expense of a legendary lord, obviously, but I like this system. It's better than it was before. But then we just have to look to the missing stuff, and really, some stuff is quite obvious. The Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Slaanesh, the Exalted Hero of Slaanesh, with the Boob Snake appearing for a mount for all the generics also, because why not, right? It would be kind of cool. We know that that's a thing that Demonettes have written before, Mortals can also. Most of the characters for Khorne can have all the mounts, and why shouldn't Slaanesh, right? Let them all slither in. I'm just making loads of silly jokes today. But, let's continue. When it comes to missing units, this is where things get a little bit more complicated, because there's certain things that maybe could happen, but maybe couldn't happen, and they're kind of worried about that. The Pleasure Seekers are Demonettes on the Boob Snakes, and that's kind of expected. They had rules, it was something from the Storm of Chaos. We never had a proper Pleasure Knights, they actually don't have a proper name, but we've seen them in artwork before, in very early artwork, so it's something that I could imagine being done too. For the mortals to play around with, it also incentivizes people to buy this DLC more, because the more that you make this DLC for Chaos go to, say, for example, the Warriors of Chaos also and the Beastmen, the more incentivized people are to buy because they can use it more. Slangors are coming in, and I'm kind of disappointed that Slangors are likely not going to have javelins. It would be nice, but it does seem like Creative Assembly are playing them safe. It would be nice to have a skirmishing range unit with Slaanesh. It makes a lot of sense. Yes, we do have the Marauders, but you know what I mean here. Right now we have hand weapon and shield. We have halberds, which most of the models are actually great weapons, and then we have a great weapon one too. This is for all the individualized God Touch Gores. So I could see this happening and maybe give them additional hand weapons for this one, because Slaanesh kind of works with the anti-infantry situation too. In a perfect world, they'd have javelins too. Yes, I'm very much expecting, and I have high expectations so far, but it's how it's going to be. I don't want more of these reskin units. I don't want, like, Centigores of Slaanesh, although it would make sense. There needs to be 5 troopers. Technically, there would be a lot of reused assets for 1 and 2, which would be the Pleasure Knights and Pleasure Seekers. So what can they do for 2 other ones? There needs to be a big centerpiece and then something else. We could end up seeing the Fiend of Slaanesh, which is one of the 4 unique Chaos Spawn that we did see during the earlier days of Warhammer Fantasy and also the MMO, which was Age of Reckoning. I could see it being done and just redesigned, kind of like what happened to the Blood Beast, because it's in the same family, essentially. Well, different gods, but spawns. I'm not gonna lie, that could be quite interesting. I feel like it's something that could end up being really, really special. But it is a very weird situation because what happened with the Blood Beast is they just kind of reused the animations and rig from Sylar and Fingrim, and that's why you've got monkey character and now monkey units. I could technically see them doing like Devoted of Slaanesh, which were what? The Witch Elves? Kind of just Witch Elves, but Slaaneshi. Maybe different skinned and that. I wouldn't mind that, I guess, if you make them a little bit better and have their own styling. And I'm fine with one unit being a bit of a reskin. Well, actually a few more with the generic Lord and Hero and also the Slangors. But I'm being realistic here. The snake is going to have to move in such a weird place that it's likely going to take the animation budget. But that takes us to 4. But we haven't spoken about the centerpiece yet. And that's because there's 3 different options that they could go with. There needs to be a big centerpiece. Every faction has one. So, it's either the Basilisk, which, kind of cool, serpentine monster, obviously it's got a few legs that can run around quite quickly. The Dreadmaw, big snake. Its origins have been kind of unknown. It's like, oh, maybe it's a Koreshi monster, maybe it's just a creature for chaos, maybe it's a bit of both. Hell, the vampires tried to summon it at one point too. But with the snake theme and all that, I could imagine them bringing that in. Or the last option, which I know some people wouldn't be keen on, but I kind of would be too. The Gigantic Chaos Spawn. It's a model that's just recently come back for the Warhammer the Old World, and I'm actually really, really happy about that. Smaller than I remembered, too. Yeah, really weird. I found mine, I'm like, oh my god. I kept thinking it was bigger. That's what she said. All of them could be good options. Like, the Basilisk would be fast-moving, anti-infantry. The Dreadmaw could be done as an anti-large unit, I think could work out quite well, but still fairly decent at killing infantry. I mean, both of them would be. The Chaos Spawn, I kind of gravitate towards it, but I don't want it to be a Slaanesh creature. I want it to be for all Chaos Gods, so there should be just 4 being introduced at one point. Maybe that's something that we could end up seeing during an End Times DLC. The rumors are getting louder and louder. Alright, if I have to pick, I'm going to have to say the Dreadmaw. I would just like Big Snake. I think it would be really cool to see how they could actually do something that tunnels, because we haven't actually seen the Dreadmaw's full body. It just is... It's a small kind of miniature in that regard because it's just coming up from the ground, but I feel like something could be done really, really well. Maybe they just go full snake. Like, actually a massive, long snake slithering across the battlefield. That would be pretty impressive. Maybe having a bit of a teleport mechanic where it just dives into the ground and then appears in other locations. That's something that we know is possible. We've seen other modders do that, so Creative Assembly could easily do that. They might go with the Basilisk because it's easier, but I'm just going with what I really like. I don't know, maybe you guys have a different suggestion. There was art for like a really big centipede demonette thing, but that was just art. I don't know if Games Workshop would ever allow for the creation of like proper new demons like that. Mostly because Games Workshop are very lazy with that. How many times have we been asking for new demons in the tabletop, right? There are 4 key Warhammer settings. Old World / Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, 40k and 30k, and we barely see new demons. There's been a few for Slaanesh during the Hedonites launch, but even then it's just kind of like demonettes playing a harp. It's like, oh, big whoop. And lastly, I do have to mention this because I'm always going to fricking mention this. If we end up seeing this, like an actual nice Slaanesh DLC, it would be nice if we got a proper Slaanesh style rework for Morathi. It would just be kind of cool. Give us some Chaos Warriors, a few more demons. She's got demonettes right now, but something different. I feel like that would be really nice, and that's why I say Dark Elves, High Elves, and Slaanesh. It would work very, very well, because it could justify bringing in some of the new units to Morathi and being exclusive for her when you're playing as the Dark Elves. These are just some ideas. I've been jumping around thinking about this because, yeah, it's now or never, right? We need to get to Slaanesh DLC. Obviously, it's going to take a while. Who knows? Hopefully not another 8-month drought, but my idea here was I want to throw some ideas at them. The Khorne one, I think, was decent. It's a little bit lacking in certain locations, but overall, pretty good. I want it to be as close to, like, the quality of Thrones of Decay as possible. Yes, I have big expectations. Yes, I'm always going to be thinking to the stars, but Slaanesh is my faction, and I want my faction to be treated as well as possible. Just because Games Workshop love to ignore Slaanesh doesn't mean that CA should too. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. Maybe you guys know a better unit that could be the better centerpiece. And yeah, I'll see you all again very, very soon. I've had a little bit of a break. I'm up and running. This video is going to be a bit late because I have been busy doing some IRL stuff. But yeah, I'm back. We're going to be back to daily videos, I think. And yeah, it should be kind of cool. Have a good one, guys.